For friends entered the wilderness seeking peace, only to awaken something ancient, watching, and hungry for more than just their fear. The wilderness has always been a place of solitude, a sanctuary for those seeking escape from the chaos of civilization. But for some, it becomes a prison, vast, indifferent, and unforgiving. This story begins with a group of 4 friends, Noah, Liam, Ava, and Rachel, who set out on a backpacking trip deep into the untouched forests of the Pacific Northwest. They weren't thrill seekers or survivalists, just nature lovers with a taste for adventure and a desire to disconnect from technology for a few days. They had done their research, picked a well-reviewed trail known as Raven Spine, a relatively unknown path that had recently been reopened after years of closure due to landslides. Locals warned it was cursed ground, stories of disappearances, strange sounds, and something about the earth itself feeling wrong. But like most urban hikers, they dismissed the tales as backwoods superstition. The more forbidden it felt, the more exciting it became. The first day was picture perfect. Towering pine trees, shafts of golden sunlight filtering through the canopy, and the distant sound of running water created an almost magical atmosphere. They made camp near a river bend, cooked over a fire, and laughed under the stars. There was a lightness in the air, the kind that only comes from being far from emails, alarms, and streetlights. But as the sun dipped below the jagged ridge in the distance, something shifted. The forest that felt warm and inviting hours ago now loomed heavy and oppressive. The wind died down, replaced by an uncanny silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses on your ears, as if the woods were holding their breath. That night, Ava woke up in a cold sweat. She couldn't explain it, only that she'd heard something breathing outside her tent. Heavy, slow, and deliberate. She called out softly to the others, but got no response. When she peeked outside, expecting a raccoon or maybe a bear, she saw nothing, only the empty trees, swaying gently as if trying to whisper something just beyond comprehension. Morning came, and none of them slept well. Liam said he dreamt of someone walking in circles around the camp. Rachel mentioned hearing whispers in a language she didn't understand. Noah shrugged it off. "It's just the woods," he said, but Ava wasn't so sure. The path ahead felt different now, like they weren't walking alone anymore. They set out early the next morning, hoping to shake off the unsettling energy of the night. The trail was rougher now, less maintained, with branches clawing at their jackets and moss swallowing the edges of the path. The GPS on Liam's phone had lost signal hours ago, and the paper map Noah carried didn't match what they were seeing anymore. The trees were denser, the sunlight weaker. Even the birds had stopped singing. Around midday, they found an old wooden marker sticking crookedly out of ground. No words, no symbols, just a decaying post covered in deep scratch marks. It hadn't been on any of their maps. Maybe the boundary marker? Liam suggested, his voice uncertain. But Rachel stared at it, her brow furrowed. No, it's more like a warning. They should have turned back then. Instead, they pressed on. An hour later, the forest began to change. The air grew heavier, damp and thick like something was rotting beneath the mossy floor. The trees were larger here, their trunks twisted unnaturally, with bark peeling like burnt skin. They stumbled upon what looked like an old fire ring, blackened stones, and charred earth in the shape of a perfect circle. Yet there was no ash, no sign of life, as if the fire had been smothered long ago or had never burned naturally. Rachel, who had been lagging behind, suddenly froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. They all stopped. In the stillness, they heard it too, a low, rhythmic thumping sound, far off in the woods, like something massive walking, but wrong, uneven, almost like dragging. Noah tried to laugh it off, but even he was pale now. "Could be falling branches," he offered weakly. As night approached, panic started to set in. They hadn't seen a trail marker in hours. Every direction looked the same. They were lost. Completely. They made camp again, but no one wanted to sleep. Rachel kept watch with a small flashlight, her hands trembling. In the darkness beyond the trees, something moved. She caught a glimpse of it. Pale and tall, with long limbs that didn't seem to bend right. But when she aimed the light, it vanished. Later, Liam woke up screaming. He said something had reached into the tent, touched his face with a hand that felt wet and cold, but left no trace behind. It whispered my name, he gasped. The forest was no longer a place of silence. It was listening. By morning, Liam refused to move. His eyes were sunken, skin pale, and he kept muttering the same phrase. It touched me. It knows me now. Noah tried to pull him to his feet, but Liam slapped his hand away and retreated to the base of a massive tree, an ancient, blackened thing with bark like wrinkled flesh. We're safe here, he said. It doesn't come near this one. They all stared at the tree. It was unlike the others. Its roots stretched far and deep, gnarled like bone, and the air around it felt colder. Ava approached it cautiously, drawn to the strange hum coming from within. As she laid her hand on the bark, she recoiled. It was vibrating. It's breathing, she whispered. Noah had had enough. We need to move now. We can't just sit here waiting to die. Rachel agreed, though her voice was tight with fear. Ava hesitated, but nodded. They tried to convince Liam to come with them, but he just shook his head. If you leave the tree, it'll find you. They left him behind. The forest was different now, worse. Every step felt heavier, like the ground resisted their movement. Strange symbols appeared carved into trunks. Spirals, crude eyes, crude stick figures with their arms raised like they were screaming. Rachel swore she saw someone ahead of them on the trail, just beyond the trees. A pale figure, naked and thin, disappearing every time she tried to point out. And then came the sounds. Not animal cries. Voices. Familiar ones. Ava heard her mother calling her name, softly, gently, like from across a dream. Rachel heard her dead brother, begging her to help him. Noah, hardened and logical, pretended to ignore it, but his clenched fists told another story. When night fell again, they didn't make camp. They just huddled near a shallow ravine, too afraid to light a fire. Rachel whispered that she saw eyes in the dark, reflective, too high off the ground to be human. Ava began to cry quietly, clutching her backpack like it could protect her. Then they heard Liam's voice, calling to them. But when they turned around, it wasn't Liam who stepped out from the trees. It was something wearing his face like a mask, loosened too wide, the mouth smiling inhumanly long, the eyes black and hollow, and it spoke in Liam's exact voice. You left me behind. They ran. Branches tore their skin as they crashed through the forest in blind panic. The thing that wore Liam's face laughing behind them, a high-pitched, broken sound like glass grinding on stone. No one spoke. No one dared to stop. The trees themselves seemed to close in, funneling them deeper into the dark, away from any direction that made sense. When they finally collapsed in a clearing, their legs burning and lungs on fire, Rachel looked around wildly. This isn't real. It can't be real. But the bite marks on her arm said otherwise. Something had grabbed her during the sprint, cold, bony fingers that tore through her sleeve and left punctures that bled slowly. They were surrounded by totems. Dozens of wooden effigies lined the clearing. Crude human shapes carved from branches and twine, all facing inward. Their faces were hollow, holes gouged where eyes and mouths should be. The air smelled like mold and old iron. We've been here before, Ava whispered. I remember that one. She pointed to a figure near the edge, the same symbol burned into its chest that they saw carved in the trees earlier. We've gone in a circle. Noah didn't answer. He was staring into the woods, eyes wide. They're watching us. Shapes moved just beyond the tree line, tall, thin, impossible to fully see. Every time the wind blew, they seemed to twitch, almost step forward. And when it stopped, they froze like statues. Rachel began to laugh. Not out of joy, but pure, broken terror. It's a game to them. They're hunting us, piece by piece. Liam was just the start. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the trees. It was Noah's, calling for help. But Noah was standing right there, shaking his head. Don't listen to it. It's trying to split us up. Then another voice, Ava's this time, crying, desperate, pleading. I don't want to die, it said. Rachel turned toward the trees, eyes glazed. That sounds like my brother. Ava grabbed her arm. No, it's not him. It's not real. Rachel jerked away. You don't know that. And before anyone could stop her, she ran into the woods, vanishing between the trees. Noah and Ava stood frozen, unable to breathe. The silence returned, and then the voices started again. This time, it was Rachel screaming. Rachel's screams faded, swallowed by the woods like they'd never existed. Noah gripped Ava's wrist, whispering, "We can't go after her. You know what happens if we do." But Ava's eyes were locked on the darkness. "We can't leave her, not like Liam." Her voice trembled, but her legs wouldn't move. She knew chasing Rachel meant death, or worse. And whatever was lurking in the trees didn't kill fast. It wanted them scared. Alone, shattered, they wandered through the trees in silence, guided only by instinct. The map was useless. The stars were hidden. Hunger gnawed at them, their water long gone. Noah stumbled, leaning on a branch, his breathing ragged. "It's like the forest shifting," he muttered. "We walk in one direction, but everything behind us changes." By morning, they reached a place that made them stop cold. A perfectly circular clearing. No trees, just dirt, black and scorched, as if fire had once devoured everything within its boundary. In the center stood a stone altar, ancient and cracked, covering the same spiral symbols they'd seen carved into bark. They weren't alone. The forest behind them whispered, and from the edges, the figures emerged. Tall, pale, bone-thin. Their faces were stretched masks of human expressions, like someone had tried to imitate a smile without understanding what it meant. Their limbs moved wrong, too fluid, too fast. And behind them, the thing wearing Rachel's skin stepped forward, dragging her face like a melted wax sculpture. Noah pushed Ava back. "Run. If it takes me, keep going. Don't stop." Before she could protest, the creatures lunged. Noah screamed as they fell upon him. Ava ran, blindly, through branches, thorns, and fog. She didn't know how long she ran, only that eventually the trees began to thin. A road, a real road. A car passing by slammed its brakes when they saw her collapse on the side, covered in blood, dirt, and tears. She was the only one who came back. Authorities searched Raven's spine for weeks. No trace. No bodies. The trail has since been closed again due to safety concerns. But the locals know why. They say something ancient lives in those woods. Something that doesn't forget who dares to enter. Ava never hiked again. She never spoke of what really happened. But sometimes late at night, when she dreams, she hears Liam's voice whisper through the trees, "You left me behind."